It's game night for your Dallas Mavericks. We get you ready over the next 30 minutes here on the Dallas Mavs pregame show. What you need to know, X factors, and more. All that coming up here on the Dallas Mavs pregame show. Here we go. Hey, what's up, Dallas Mavs Nation? It's your man, Kevin Gray, alongside Mavericks analyst Bobby Carella. We are Dallas Mavs, your favorite guys covering your favorite team every single game night. You can find me on X at Kevin Gray Sports, at Bobby Carella. And later on in our show, our Mavericks beat writer Tim Cato will join us live from the AAC. You can find him on X at Tim_Cato. It is game night for your Dallas Mavericks as they continue their 5-game homestand. Tonight, they host the Chicago Bulls at the AAC as the Mavericks look for a bounce-back win after losing to the Indiana Pacers on Monday. So much to get to over the next 30 minutes on our pregame show. Who's in, who's out, X Factors, Bobby's scouting report as well. Let us know how you're feeling about the Mavericks taking on Chicago tonight at the AAC. Question for you, Bobby, and in the chat, would you ever go running with the Bulls ever?
No. I am pretty sure that in like a sprint I could outrun a bull. But if we're talking distance running, I doubt I stand a chance.
Okay, so no outrunning bulls of any kind in the long distance form.
I don't think so. I don't think bulls are very fast, but I bet that they, when they're enraged, they can probably go for a while. Me, not so much.
Not so much. Saying I'm not a Bulls guy, either, basketball or running against the Bulls or with the Bulls. I'm not doing that either.
I'm not much of a Bulls guy either.
Same either. And
nothing against Bulls.
I'm just personally not, with the Bulls. And hopefully that's the same case tonight at the AAC. Game number 8 of 82 for your Dallas Mavericks. If you're going to be watching the game, you can watch it on KFAA Channel 29. Tip-off at 7:30 p.m. Your Dallas Mavericks, of course, at 4-3, 3-2 so far at the AAC. Chicago coming in at 3-4, 2-2 away from the United Center in Chicago. Mavericks, Bobby, 9.5-point favorite tonight against the Chicago Bulls, if you're into that sort of thing. Mavericks, of course, looking to bounce back after dropping Monday's game to the Indiana Pacers 134-127, despite Luka Doncic having 34 points and 15 assists in that game. Bulls have lost their last 2 straight games, including 3 of their last 5 as well. As we mentioned, Mavericks on their 5-game homestand, 1-2 so far in this homestand. They've got Chicago tonight before they welcome in Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns on Friday. But the Mavericks, Bobby, have got to find a way to keep up with what is the pace as we jump into your scouting report when it comes to the Chicago Bulls tonight.
Chicago Bulls, Kevin, are the fastest paced team in the league, and it is not close. They're playing more than 106 possessions per game so far this season, which is like a video game number, almost 2 possessions more than the second fastest team in the league. And a lot of that, pace is how many possessions you play on offense per 48 minutes. Generally, that means the faster you play on offense, the faster you play on defense too, but it's not really that way. The Bulls do a really good job of getting back in transition. Whenever they miss a shot at the rim, they're not attacking the offensive glass. They're getting back. They are, I think, 3rd worst in the NBA in offensive rebound rate. So basically, if it's not Nikola Vucevic grabbing that offensive rebound, well, you got 3 or 4 Bulls already back. And we know the Mavs want to be a fast-paced, up-and-down team that can exploit, these 3-on-2 or 4-on-3 opportunities in the open floor going the other way. You're probably not going to get those tonight. So on the one hand, we'll get into injuries in a little bit, but the Mavs are going to be lacking some size tonight. It shouldn't hurt them in the way that it did against, say, the Rockets, for example. They shouldn't be getting bullied on the offensive glass, but you are going to have to get up and down the floor. We saw the Pacers basically targeting Luka and Kyrie and Spencer Dinwiddie for the entire second half the other night. And even though the Pacers don't play too big, they still had 76 points in the paint.
Yeah.
And so, pace isn't against teams like the Bulls in Indiana that want to spread the floor, go 5 out, get up and down. Pace isn't even limited to open floor stuff. You have to be prepared to play fast on defense in the half court too.
For the Mavericks going into this game, they're going to be taking on a talented center in terms of Nikola Vucevic, who so far this year has been playing really well for Chicago offensively, averaging nearly 22 points per game and nearly 11 rebounds per contest, which is 11th in the league so far this year, shooting 48.5% from three and nearly 55% from the field. So Daniel Gafford is going to have his hands full tonight against his former team. And of course, Bobby started to mention it when it comes to the injuries. No Dereck Lively II. Once again, he'll be missing his second straight game with a shoulder injury. And we found out yesterday that PJ Washington is going to be out for tonight's game. He's dealing with the knee injury. So the Mavericks going to be down a little bit in terms of some of their size off the bench with Dereck Lively II. But also PJ Washington, in terms of the starting lineup, is going to be on Daniel Gafford, Bobby, to really be able to play well in this game against Chicago. You remember the game last year in Chicago. The Mavericks won by 35 points. Dereck Lively and Daniel Gafford combining to only miss one shot on that particular night. They were really good in the middle. It's going to be on Daniel Gafford tonight against his former team to get it done in the middle for the Mavericks tonight.
That was a complete and utter destruction at the end of last season. Dallas had 60 points in the paint. Gafford and Lively combined for 20 of 21 shooting.
That's right.
In that game, it was truly disgusting from the Bulls' standpoint.
Yes, it wasn't great for them.
They're probably going to try and take that away. They've already done a good job of taking Dereck Lively out of the game. He's not going to get any points tonight.
Nope.
PJ Washington either. So the Mavs are going to be down some size. It is just Gafford and Powell. The Bulls only have Vucevic. They don't Jalen Smith off the bench. He's not really like a true banger center. I mean, he's 6'9", 6'10", more of like a stretchy big, more like a guy like Maxi Kleber, for example. So, there will be opportunities for Gafford to do his thing around the rim tonight. But on the flip side, he's going to have to track Vooch. And neither he nor anyone else in the entire state of Texas could slow down Miles Turner the other night. The only guy that did that was Rick Carlisle whenever he'd take him out of the game.
That's right.
So, Vooch is not, in my opinion, not the kind of caliber player that Miles Turner is on defense, but he can be very dangerous on offense. He's got off to a hot start this season, like you said. He had a really, really horrific shooting season last year, but the truth is somewhere in the middle. I mean, he's a mid-30s three-point shooter and can heat up and can also score in the mid-range and on the low block too. So if you start switching or if you go small, he can punish you down low. If it's Gafford guarding him, you have got to get out on him. You have got to be ready for that in the pick and pop. I would say the one saving grace compared to the other night against Indiana is that, the Mavs will probably test Josh Giddey. They'll probably test some of the Bulls' other shooters. Ayo Dosunmu's been starting for Zach LaVine, and he's out tonight. He's got off to a really lousy shooting start, too. So maybe you can sag off some of those guys, which should give Gafford a little more leeway to step out a little bit and take some more chances because you'll have help behind. But if those guys heat up, and if Gafford can't keep up with Vooch, then it's going to be a long night. The one thing, though, Kevin, is that the Bulls are the fastest-paced team, but they have been a awful offensive team to start the season. They rank very poorly in offensive rating and a lot of other key stats, too. So if the Mavs can just bring the juice tonight, then they should be fine. But I said that against Houston, and they got run off the floor. Yeah,
and you mentioned some of the guys that are going to be on the offensive side for the Chicago Bulls, including Kobe White, averaging 20.3 points per game, shooting nearly 42% from three so far this year. Josh Giddey having a nice start to his season, of course, coming over from Oklahoma City to Chicago, averaging nearly 15 points per game and 7 rebounds per game as well, along with over 6 assists per contest. So distributing the basketball of Chicago so far this year. On the other side, defensively, when it comes to the Bulls, are allowing the 6th most points per game in the NBA so far this year, giving up over 119 points per contest. The Mavericks 18th in pace of the first 7 games. We mentioned as the Bulls number 1 in pace so far this year, and you started to allude to it in terms of offensive rating. Chicago 108.1. That is 27th in the league so far this year when it comes to offensive rating. But on the defensive end, if you're the Mavericks tonight, you have a chance to put a lot of points on the board because this team in Chicago defensively not great and will give you plenty of opportunities to put the ball in the basket.
Yeah, but again, you have to get back on defense.
Yeah.
You have to get back on defense. The Mavs were scoring a ton the other night against Indy. They had a really good, total output game and also a really good offensive rating game, but they got smoked on defense, so it didn't even matter. And a lot of that came down to the first 3.5 minutes or whatever it was of the game where they fell behind 15-2. And if you spot the other team 13 points, you're going to lose most of the time. Now, I think Indy is a better team than Chicago, so if the Mavs do fall behind tonight, maybe all will be well. The one good thing, I guess, with this game being right after Indiana is that the Mavs should be very familiar with what a fast-paced team looks like, so it shouldn't catch them off guard.
And you had a day off as
yeah,
well.
And that's critical too. But man, I mean, they've got to be better coming out of the gates. You know, they've got to be better coming out of the gates, because if you're going up against a team that struggles on offense, that's already missing a couple guys, missing Levine, who's probably their most dynamic scorer outside of maybe Kobe White. It's going to be really tough for the Bulls to get back into it. But if you start down 15-2 again, it's going to be really hard for you to get into it. So I want to see the Mavs grab the bull by the horns, so
I
to
like
speak,
what you did there.
and get off to a good start for once. I mean, if there's going to be a night to do it, tonight's going to be the night.
Yeah. Let's throw up that comment in the chat, Tanner, from Corbin. He has a question for Bobby about what to expect from Najee Marshall and Klay Thompson. Najee Marshall, of course, had his best game as a Dallas Maverick against the Indiana Pacers, albeit in the loss. But I would imagine that Najee would get the start in place of P.J. Washington tonight when it comes to P.J. missing tonight's game with the knee injury.
The Bulls have, and this is no disrespect, the Bulls just have a lot of targets on their team. They have a lot of guys that Luke can get switched on, or Kyrie can get switched on and go to work. Kobe White and Dosunmu are too small. Josh Giddey is probably too slow for Luka, definitely too slow for Kyrie. And Vucevic doesn't want anything to do with Luka or Kyrie.
That's right.
And so if Luka and Kyrie can get going, the Bulls might double team them anyway, but if they get hot early, then they're going to have to crank up the pressure. You cannot let those guys guard Luka and Kyrie one-on-one all night. I'm expecting there to be some sort of pressure coming from somewhere. Either that's Vucevic blitzing, which means big man get ready, or that means wings like rotating early and really tilting the floor in the direction of the ball, which means Klay on the weak side could have a potentially a big game. So those guys got to be ready. But I really think tonight is going to be a Luka, Kyrie have to force the issue early, force the Bulls to do something, and then everybody else can eat. I don't think it's going to be one of those vice versa things.
Klay Thompson averaging nearly 15 points per game while shooting nearly 39% from three so far this year. The Mavericks, of course, won the season series last year, 2 games to none, including, as we mentioned, that 35-point beatdown, 127-92 in Chicago back on March 11th. Daniel Gafford and Dereck Lively II that night combining to go 20 of 21 from the field, with Daniel Gafford going a perfect 9 of 9 from the field that night, going and combining for 42 points in the win. By the way, 6 of the last 8 meetings between these two teams have been decided by double digits. The home team having won 7 of the last 10 matchups. So if you're looking for some good mojo when it comes to the Mavericks tonight, the home team has won 7 out of the last 10 when it comes to these two teams getting together, and 6 of the last 8 being decided by double digits. So if you're looking for the Mavericks to get clicking on all cylinders and get off to a fast start and try to put away Chicago, history indicates that this game could be out of hand in terms of double digits, hopefully in the Mavericks' favor tonight as they take on the Chicago Bulls, looking to bounce back after their loss on Monday to Rick Carlisle and the Indiana Pacers. Much more here.
Oh
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. One of those losses by the home team was a couple seasons ago, whenever the Mavs lost at home, expertly, I might add.
Oh, wow,
in the penultimate
that's right.
game of the season. It was a very important loss for a Mavs team that was trying to reload. They really grabbed defeat from the jaws of victory. They got off to a huge start. Markieff Morris came in the game and was just red hot in the first half, and I was like, oh my God, this is going to happen, isn't it? But they avoided catastrophe, and we're rewarded with a guy that won't be playing in the game tonight. So hopefully it works out.
Yeah, that was a real strange night. Yeah, that was, now that you bring that back up, that was like the best of times, and also like, oh, this is not really supposed to be, never mind. It's all good now because we got that guy, as Bobby mentioned, that won't be playing tonight. Hopefully he'll be back very soon. Much more ahead here on our pregame show as the Mavericks get ready to take on the Chicago Bulls with pregame, or with the game tipping off at 7:30 p.m. We'll get into who's in, who's out, and X factors for tonight's game. And Tim Cato will be joining us live from the American Airlines Center with his thoughts on what Jason Kidd had to say pregame as well. All coming up here on the DLLS Mavs pregame show. But before we get there, got to become a diehard member here at DLLS Sports.
Yeah. Do that. So our limited time intro offer did expire. So that's no more. I warned you. All right. I warned you all out there that you had to act quickly. Now, many of you did. And I want to shout out some of the people that got in just before the final buzzer. So shout out to Mario, shout out to Rick, shout out to Josh, some of our most recent diehards here at All DLLS. .com. That's where you can go and become a diehard. alldls.com/diehard. It's a great way to support what we're doing here at DLS Sports and to join a community of fellow Dallas sports lovers. We were running that intro offer. Hey, if you missed out, though, you can still do it. And when you sign up, it's going to cost you less than $7 a month, and you get a free shirt. And here's what else you get. Discount on future shirts. I got a shirt. It's actually sitting right over there. I'm going to wear it on tomorrow's show. So I'll let you all in the chat guess which shirt that'll be. And you can also join. Well, get your picks in.
You get your suspense for the.
I think that's cool, right?
All right, cool. Yeah, that's
I'm
good.
sure it's going to be chat's going to be popping off.
It was just the pregnant pause, and we're like, "What's happening? Like, what's going on?"
I was trying to think of where I was taking it.
Oh, okay.
You can also join the diehard Discord Lounge. That's where we're spreading positive vibes. Sometimes watching our teams. The vibes are less positive, but hey, we're there to support each other no matter what. You can also get food takes and hot music opinions, and check out Kevin's hot sports takes on wrestling. Would you call them hot sports takes or hot?
Oh, I got some spicy takes when it comes to what's about to happen for the rest of the year, then going into the Royal Rumble season.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So there's so much. There's a little bit for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. alldls.com/diehard. Become a diehard member today. Show off your physical diehard card as well. Tag us on social media. We'll shout you out, and we hope that you become part of our DLS sports family. Again, alldls.com/diehard. Become a diehard member today. Mavericks hosting the Chicago Bulls as they continue their 5-game homestand. Let me let you know who's here as well at the AAC. It's our Mavericks beat writer, Tim Cato. You can find him on X at Tim_Cato. Tim.
Hi, Tim.
What's going on?
Hi, friends. How is everyone over in the studio?
Doing well. You doing all right?
We're doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm here for a Mavericks basketball game.
Well, that's good.
What's not great about that?
He's really carrying the segment.
I'm trying to, I'm trying to figure out what Matthew was saying. What is Matthew? What's that comment say? In the chat there, I'm trying to figure out the last one. I don't know what he's saying. I can't read. Oh, wow. Okay. I don't know why he just said that, but whatever.
I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true at all. But let me let you know who's in and who's out in tonight's basketball game. We'll start with the litany of injuries that the Chicago Bulls have. Lonzo Ball is out with his right wrist sprain. Josh Giddey, though, is active. He's dealing with a non-COVID illness. Zach LaVine, though, is out with a groin strain. Jalen Smith is active. He's dealing with a left knee injury. Patrick Williams is active. He's dealing with a right shoulder strain. For the Mavericks, Dante Exum remains out with his right wrist injury. Maxi Kleber will miss his 6th straight game with his right hamstring strain. Dereck Lively II is out for his 2nd straight game with his right shoulder sprain. And we found out that P.J. Washington Jr. yesterday is going to be out for tonight's game as he's dealing with a knee injury. Tim, what did Jason Kidd have to say about the guys that he will be missing in tonight's game?
Well, he didn't say much, which is kind of par of the course for Jason Kidd. This is not a regime that is awfully transparent about injuries. I think is something we have learned. Sounds like Dereck Lively won't be out too much longer. PJ, it's a little bit more nebulous. Najee is gonna fill in a lot of those minutes. There's talk of Olivier Maxence Prosper. Bobby, don't get too excited.
Using the full legal name. Wow.
Yeah, there's talk of him possibly being in the rotation, maybe even playing small ball 5. So yeah, I mean it's every team just about in the entire NBA goes through a stretch where you just have some injuries pile up. It just is a bummer that Dallas is already dealing with this. Dante Exum, Maxi, those are potentially injury-prone players. We've seen absences. Maybe it's hard to, be too surprised that these guys are missing time. But PJ Washington came out of nowhere. Dereck Lively came out of nowhere. These were non-game, not televised injuries. This is not a situation where they came down funny and then left the game and then started an obvious news cycle. It just came out all of a sudden that they're out. And PJ famously is the player that Bobby says is the least replaceable one on the entire roster. And so I'm not sure what you guys said in the first segment, but I assume it was talking about potentially how to, what his absence means and which players should fill it. Was there a consensus on, what the right methodology is to go about replacing him in the rotation?
No, we didn't really hit on it. I didn't want to be a doomer right out of the gate, but yeah, I mean, I've said for a very long time, PJ is really kind of the on a team with Luke and Kyrie. This is going to sound insane, but PJ is like almost a one-of-one player on this roster. The only other guy that can kind of do what he does is Maxey, and Maxey's out too. So this sucks, Tim.
Well, you know what? It's what's happening. So you just have to accept that is the reality that the Mavericks are in. And maybe Omax Prosper has his shining moment tonight.
His
what if
one
that could
shining
happen?
moment.
Well,
hopefully it is
there's
only
more.
one shining moment because they
He's
cannot.
like, I don't know if I want more of these throughout the course of the season.
I mean, their upcoming schedule is brutal. Like,
Yeah.
if PJ's gonna miss Phoenix and Denver, then I'm gonna start planning Cabo.
Wow, you're doing a lot.
Are we
Bobby.
doing that? Or is the season?
It's
No?
way too early to start
Okay.
thinking about any of that.
Okay.
What else stood out
Bobby's
to
just
you?
trying to get out of work.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that. He's got too much work to do around here.
Yes.
What else stood out to you from what Jason Kidd had to say pregame going into tonight's game against Chicago?
I mean, it made sense that Jason Kidd kind of identified the everybody's going to have to step up defensively in PJ's absence, because that really is where PJ is so irreplaceable. It's on the defensive end. It's he's off to a pretty poor offensive start to the season. I think that's clear, but he's been out there 30 to 35 minutes pretty much every night because that defense, like Bobby says, like I certainly agree with, is they don't have it anywhere else on the roster. He's their one guy who has size and can be a secondary rim protector in the absence of rim protection. And so I think the likely scenario is that we're probably going to see we're going to see a lot more Daniel Gafford than we did against Indiana. This is a much better matchup for him. This was, as you guys noted, I caught the last few minutes of your first segment. This was in the midst of his 33 consecutive made shots streak. And so very clearly, this is a team that he can overwhelm a little bit with size. So I think there's going to be a much higher dose of Daniel Gafford. But I think in lieu of that, Dallas is going to have to go small a little bit more at times. Like, this might be the game where Quentin Grimes' leash is really extended. And that's, this is why the team, if it has all the depth that we said it had all off season, and, I still think it's a deep team. It's just, it didn't help that almost instantly, two players, were out for a reasonable amount of time in Maxey and Dante. But if this team is deep, then it should be able to shore it up. And yes, it would be ideal if they had another tall stretch for, a just kind of versatile, do everything, a guy who's 6'10", a Larry Nance, some player like that. That would certainly be the ideal situation for this team. But because they are a little bit lacking depth when it comes to, players who are over, 6'7", they're just gonna have to play small. And that's a situation I think Dallas can deal with against an opponent like Chicago. Even, I thought they should have been able to manage do that potentially against Indiana. And Chicago is a team that's feisty, that's fun in some ways, but it's also a banged up team. Chicago's not out here saying, "Oh, you poor Mavericks. Look at all the players you're missing." They're missing their own players.
Sure.
Who cares? So this is if this team is deep, then I don't think this should be an issue. And I guess we'll see. But this is where all the supposed depth that this team had coming into the year really needs to show out and prove that everything that we said on the show about how deep they were was right. Because if I'm wrong, I'm going to be really sad. That's going to upset me. I said for so long that they're deep, and I want to be right about that. So they're going to earn a yelling at from me if they don't prove that tonight.
Depth is only depth when it's depth, though.
That's a great.
And the Mavs are
parable. That's good.
their depth chart tonight is not deep. Like, they got like one or two bigs,
Yeah.
one or two forwards. I mean, it's not a very tall team. Gafford gets in foul
You think
trouble.
it's Markieff Morris time?
Dude, maybe
It might have to be.
Like one guy, Najee or Gafford, get in foul trouble, and you're down to your third or fourth string guys.
You're not trying to have
position,
too many Dwight Powell minutes either. So
I think Dwight would be fine in this game, but like again, he's your third best, and honestly, probably your fourth or even fifth best center on the team behind guys like Maxey and maybe even with what it unlocks for everybody else, PJ. And he's out, Lively's out. Like and Maxey's out. You're really, really, really thin in the front court. What?
According to Jason Kidd, Omax.
Maybe. I mean, off the bench, like I think that Omax could probably guard Jalen Smith. The Bulls don't have a lot of size. Patrick Williams, their backup 4 is Julian Phillips or something. Like I have no idea. They're really, really small. So
sure.
I mean, this is copium, but like for all the teams for Washington and Lively to be out against, Chicago is probably one of the better ones because they also play small. But like the Pacers played small and it was a layup line.
And they got ran out of the gym.
Yeah.
But hopefully that's not the case.
Everything is fine though.
Everything is fine though. Let's jump into some X factors before we end our show. In fact, one of the ones that we'll start off with is one that we saw happen against the Pacers that cannot happen tonight. Can the Dallas Mavericks get off to a better start? The Mavericks have trailed after the first quarter in 5 of their first 7 games this season. Of course, the Mavericks were down 15-2 to start that game off on Monday against the Pacers. And as we saw in the title of our show, you've got to get off to a fast start tonight. Start faster if you're the Dallas Mavericks to find yourself getting opportunities to get out against the Chicago's team that likes to play with a lot of pace.
Got to, Tim.
Yeah, I would just simply do that. It doesn't look that hard because I've seen the Mavericks do it. And when they do start quick, it's like, oh, why don't you do this every game? This looks really easy. So yeah, I would also recommend
team
that.
Last year, like at the start of basically the first 5 minutes of the post trade deadline Mavs was like 2 or 3 lob dunks, a Luka step back, Kyrie doing something you've never seen before,
getting out in transition,
like a block. Yeah, it was like the first 5 minutes of every Mavs game was almost scripted, and they led 14-6.
Yeah, and a lot of it is that Luka was dominating entire first half. He was playing all 12 minutes, and he was usually finishing the quarter with like 17 points. And that's so ridiculous to say. He was usually ending the first 12 minutes with 17 points, but that happened probably 36 times last season.
Yeah.
And look, he's going to get back to that, but that certainly is a great equalizer, and he hasn't done that consistently enough. And so today's a great day for that to start up again. Just like we saw a few games ago, just like we've heard Jason Kidd talk about and him talk about, this is something that should happen, and it will help the team if, he's just unplayable from the jump. Unplayable, I just realized I used the soccer terminology. For some reason in soccer, unplayable is a good thing. It's like you can't even like play against him. Like defenders have no chance of even playing against him. That's what it means in soccer. Yes. Obviously, unplayable in American sports more often means like, yeah, you can't.
Jalen Brunson against the Clippers. You can't play. You got to go.
Jeez.
I don't know why.
Last season, post All-Star break, Luka averaged 10 points in the first quarter. This season, only 7 games, but in 9.5 minutes in the first quarter, 8 points on 35% shooting from the floor, 21% shooting from 3. Now, Kyrie in the first quarter, 4.4 points on 38.7% shooting from the floor. Now, that's 62.5% from 3, but that means you do some quick math. Kyrie's like 30% on 2s in the first quarter. So neither of those guys has been starting very efficiently so far. And that's a pretty big problem because they combine for like 60 points a game.
Yeah, it'd be good for both of them to get off to a good start at the same time, set the tone early in this game against Chicago, and hopefully against a team that does like to give up a lot of points in the Bulls, you can get out and get some early transition buckets to be able to get yourself in position to try and get this thing and put it away, hopefully a little bit earlier, just like you did when you took on the Orlando Magic a few nights ago. We will see how that all plays out tonight. Tim, as always, my guy, we appreciate your time and information and look forward to talking to you post-game.
Tim, what was the dessert tonight?
I am about to go eat. So it's been cheesecake a few times in a row.
I love cheesecake.
They had a guava cheesecake.
Have they had a fajita night yet?
No.
Okay. Thank God.
We haven't missed anything yet.
If I miss fajita night.
All right, well, go eat, Tim. Enjoy your food, and we'll talk to you post-game. All right?
I have a feeling it's going to be fajita night tonight.
If it is, let me know. I will be there.
All right.
I will go.
Okay, I'll let you know.
All right.
There he goes, our Mavericks beat writer, Tim Cato, live at the American Airlines Center. That'll do it for us here on the DLS Mavericks pregame show. The Mavericks hosting the Chicago Bulls with tip-off at 7:30 p.m. You can watch that game on KFAA Channel 29. You can listen to it on 97.1. Make sure you join us here on the postgame show 15 minutes after the final buzzer when the Mavericks take on the Chicago Bulls. Looking forward to a great game tonight at the American Airlines Center. From my guy, Bobby Carella, I'm Kevin Gray. We're DLLS Mavs. We'll talk to you postgame right here on the DLLS Mavs postgame show. We'll talk to you later. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.